Greetings. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. We're up late. Topic of this video is who's up. This is just open forum discussion. We'll see how things go. Just go with the flow. But as usual, I like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research into the matter being discussed if they feel otherwise. Any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is always encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for any misuse of the information being presented. These are simply my thoughts and opinions on the topic. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Everyone, please govern yourselves accordingly. Now, just want to get in and give maybe my weigh in. Been paying attention to the recent events that's taken place. I've already touched on the topic, of course. In the past, this video didn't really have a specific topic uh, geared towards. It's going to be open forum. And that'll be based on how many people chime in or join this discussion. I'm also kind of doing a test to see out of my small amount of subscribers who's up or who's interested in the type of content that I do, by the way. So I figured I would do this on my main channel, where sometimes on my secondary channel when I'm at the what I call the slave plantation, and I just want to either give you guys an update or give a follow-up from a previous video that I've done. That's what I'm probably going to do. You guys subscribe to my second channel, Dorsey's Resource Channel 2. So depending on how many people we get in my main on my main channel may depend on if I decide to keep this uploaded. By the way, I might delete this, but I'm still here. Want to wish you guys once again a happy new year. I've been quiet for a while. Let you all know I am still here in case you've been wondering. I have, in a way, been busy at the same time. The way that I do things, there's some things right now I can't go into details about specifically, but I said down the road, if I'm at the liberty to, I will let you guys know what's going on because I'm still punching the clock. By the way, I have domestic duties to take care of as well. You know, even though, you know, some think just because you're a bachelor, a person still may be single, that, you know, there are those out there who think that you just have all the time in the world. You know, and time management, it's not one of my strong areas, I would say. I actually had a friend many years ago, former girlfriend. She went into the field, college field of organizational management or something to that effect. I think she had very good, excellent organizational skills, and I think that equivalates to you know, uh, having a good skill set. It's a good tool to have with the different many talents that people are born with in this world. Different talents that people have, especially if you're conducting podcasts in the professional world. There's a balance between your private life and if you're doing either YouTube or if you're a radio talk show host or you're having a podcast. There were some that even have done videos to try to explain to their audiences what content creators go through behind the scenes. And as many of you all know, I don't shy away from it. I do show my face in many of the videos that I do. They're vlogs when you show your face and you're not hiding behind a avatar like I am using now, by the way, but it has my actual photo from some years back. So just wanted to let you guys know it's a fine balance between doing YouTube and trying to balance out the work life and then study at the same time. But I also wanted to give you all an update, by the way. I'm going to acknowledge a few who do chime in, by the way. Just took a glance at the chat section, so don't want you guys ever think I'm ever ignoring you. I always, if many times, I definitely acknowledge everyone in the chat section. There's some content creators that you have to literally pay. They have YouTube has memberships now by the way, where some of them, when people do live videos, content creators, they may skip a few comments or only acknowledge maybe a few people in the chat section. So I at least try to acknowledge you guys when I have these open forum discussions, so you guys have access to me, because I know at other times I get sent a lot of emails, and I want to let you all know I go through those emails on a first come first served basis, and it's at my discretion based upon the schedule that I have. By the way, is I do have a really difficult schedule with the type of I'm on a graveyard shift. Of course, I don't like to use that as an excuse. I do try my level best to balance things out, and there's some things I can't get into also for security purposes. I want to let you guys, know more information about, which I've kind of discussed in the past. By the way, I will down the road hopefully be at liberty to go into more details, but I want to give my subscribers, you all who follow me, I want to give you guys a big shout out. I do appreciate you all that do rock with me, that have donated, that do support Dorsey's Resource. By the way, someone that donated, I spoke to in person from the last video that I have done. I do appreciate the donations out there from all different walks of life. It's much appreciated. So I just want to make sure I'm coming before you guys to let you know I haven't gone dark. I had one friend ask me, was I ever going to do that again? Because he wanted to see me more consistently, but he understands the situation because he's someone that knows me personally and knows about my private life that I do share with him. By the way, and I just want to kind of give you guys a heads up as far as what's going on. I had the past couple of weeks, maybe took a little break. I had been doing some research, going over, I was deciding, dealing with the redemption education, which is part of the topic I talk about sometimes, other than the other topics that I cover, dealing with foreign currency or other things. I don't really have maybe a main topic for this channel that I've talked about politics, sometimes things that deal with banking. I've touched on precious metals in the past. I've even done a video a long time ago dealing in a field with emergency preparedness, or like a warning for what's coming down the road. So I know I can kind of be like all over the place, but I want to try to have a generalized topic, and one topic that I do discuss is things dealing with redemption education. I don't call it that other derogatory term that's used to make people look like conspiracy theorists or whatever. They use the term sovereign citizen or whatever. There is a legitimate aspect that I do have supporting documentation to substantiate is real, very real. And it was a movement, but it's truly real in terms of the commerce and knowing how to operate privately or operate a certain particular type of way. And it may be confusing to some, and I've touched on areas in the past to try to elaborate to make it more not too unconventional, but it is a form of education that I've touched on in the past. I've done videos about that can appear to be unconventional, by the way. However, there is truth to it. And the research that I was doing was that book that I went over called A Business and Law. A collegiate course from what I've looked at so far. Some years ago, I was at a bookstore in downtown in the city of Detroit that gives away free books. As I told the story, I was with someone else, and I stumbled across this book on the rack, and I noticed within the book it had a UCC financing statement filed, and I said, "Wow." And I looked up the date. This was a older book. This looked like it was a workbook that went along maybe with a hardback book, and there were some notes in there by the previous owner or the person who owned it. At this particular bookstore, a lot of people give books away, so they put them on a rack, I guess, before they throw them away. And the person I was with always likes, when we're in the area, likes to go down there and look through the books and just pick up because I was told by a guy that I met many years ago who was married at the time, stated that's where he got a lot of good books at, just by going down there. By the way, finding rare books, by the way, that may not even no longer be in print. Well, this particular book I happened to stumble across, I noticed had a like an older example of a UCC financing statement. However, the book was called The Business and the Law, something to that effect. Business and Law was in the name of the book. They've, in certain newer versions, they've shortened the name, the title, and it might just be called Business and Law. What you have to know, if you have the correct book, it will have certain chapters based on things that are related to redemption education. I've noticed things that I've studied in the movement many years ago. One of the things, of course, UCC finances statements is one part of it. There's those out there that will try to have you believe that that's not real. They have since changed those forms on different occasions going back years ago. They've updated them where they've deleted certain parts in the form, like information. Some years back, they used to include a section for your organizational ID number, and it had another section where you would put that. And they since have removed that, and I've heard they even are trying to make it more difficult to file these forms. And they've created a law, I was told a few years ago, that says you can't file as the same name, by the way. And I want to clear up and clarify that that these individuals were saying that some of these gatekeepers out here or public officials may not be aware that your all capital letters name that people in the movement refer to as the straw man. In the court system, it's recognized under a different name, because you have to understand, in the court system, they use an entirely different language. And to prove this, just look up the definition of the word legalese. Look up that terminology. Look up the term in your vocabulary. It's important to note this word, this term in your vocabulary. It's called legalese, by the way. And one of the simple definitions that I saw, because you know how multiple different dictionaries have different slight variations of meanings of words when you get into grammar. And they do have rules of grammar separately for those that to debunk the myth that the straw man is something made up by sovereign citizens or some type of conspiracy theory. No, I'm here to debunk that, say that is inaccurate, by the way. And to prove this, I explained to a friend of mine yesterday with some things. I'm getting better at being able to explain this. You ever heard of capitis diminutio maxima? Some of these words are where they derive from. When you get into linguistics and studying a language and history, it's very important to note the historical reference where these terms came from. And I do have supporting documentation to back this up, by the way, that I selectively I found on my own, actually, from researching someone else who's more advanced than myself in the movement. I won't say the individual's name, but I saw that no one else in the movement, only a few other people, when I was still doing research, even at a more advanced stage, which I'm at now, I still have to, take, like if you've heard of refresher courses that people would take, you know, if they've been out of school for a very long time, or if they're going through training at a job to get better or skilled in a particular area. Even if you were good at something, you may need to take a refresher course to find out what's updated. So I constantly, because I've been in the movement for many years, since '04, when I started learning about this information, when I first woke up to what this was, and was doing research ever since. And it's not really a support network. I would say that it's strong. It's much stronger today than it was back then. But when I first got involved in this information, a lot of people don't understand. Many years ago, it was not like it is now. There was another content creator who's discussed this and addressed this before. He even says that a lot of people who want to learn this information have it a lot easier, because we remember a time when you had to know, it was through word of mouth what material to purchase, and then the material at the time wasn't as good as it is now. We considered that old technology. Like even that term when people use secure party creditor, I look at that as like there's processes that involves that I have told people I haven't used in years. I haven't touched it, but it doesn't mean that it didn't work or that it wasn't real. But I've been able to stay abreast when the information, the technology became more advanced and was newly developed years later. I've been able to, have an eye for that and share that with newbies out there, of people who are trying to advance their education. And this, but going back to the straw man, the straw term, that term capitis diminutio maxima deals with the all caps, and there's a difference between capitis diminutio minima, by the way. And once again, look up the term legalese. The definitions are very important, by the way. And one of the original cracking the code manuals included the terminology, the definition, the glossary was very important to note. I do also hear when people are studying for the bar exam to become a lawyer, they have to learn a lot of those terms, I guess. A friend of mine was dating someone who was a lawyer who was actually studying to be a judge, and she mentioned to him they even have an abridged version of the Black's Law Legal Dictionary. It's real thick dictionaries. Some of them, the dictionaries are bigger than a regular General Webster's dictionary, because the difference is that in the court system, like words that we learned when we were in elementary school, you will find out within the court system they had an entirely different meaning to them. By the way, for example, the word understand is an example I've used in the past that we were taught, in grade school. You would think the word understand means to comprehend. Not only does it mean comprehend, but did you know in the court system, this is a real easy example. It has a totally has another meaning to comprehending. It means when you say I understand, you're saying yes, I agree to the terms of the contract, the terms of the agreement, because many things that we get involved with deals with contracts. This is a key component that a lot of people miss when I say sometimes you need to go back to the basics. Like when my sensei trained me in martial arts, and I hadn't trained in a long time, or would forget the moves, the exercises that you have to repetitively do to condition your body to be able to be razor sharp, to be able to execute that blow or deliver that move in a precise manner so it's efficient and effective. He would always say, go back to the basics of the form of what I taught you. He says, before I teach you the advanced information, or else you're not going to have your foundation is not going to be as solid. So if you go up against a more advanced fighter, someone who's very proficient, you can, obviously not, come out as victorious or do as well because you didn't get the basics down. And that's what a lot of people, when they get in this, they like to skip over and just say, well, I want to know how to be on the do not detain list, or Dorsey, I want to know how I can pay off all my debt, and I have to explain it's not that easy. In some instances it's not necessarily hard, but there's things that you have to do and things you have to know. What we discovered many years later through trial and error was you have to protect yourself. And there's even forms that I know I haven't even gotten around to. There's things that I can have an understanding that forms that are for paperwork that's more advanced than what I've even been taught, by the way, that I know that assists one in I'll just say protecting yourself from these different contracts that we get involved with in the commercial world, by the way. And that's when things go back to is contracts. One of the things I mentioned again, it's important to get the definitions down. That's why I said document the term legalese. Is very important to note what that means. You can look it up. And it literally explains in one particular definition, it says it's been used to replace plain talk or plain English. What, and it's like, wow, really? Within the court system. So this is something that has been intentionally hidden from us, by the way. And this was done intentionally, by the way. It was even stated by a friend who studied history. He's the equivalent of a five-star historian. He shared with me privately that he said some of this information many years ago, when you to be able, remember, it was against the law for certain people to be able to read. They had a caste system in place, and I would just say different parts of the world, in certain region of the world. If you heard the term commoner is like a lower class, in the caste system, a lower class term for citizen, or a serf, when you refer to as a commoner. But mind you, if you had nobility, if you had a title of nobility, that's where you have like the surnames, where someone may be called lord or duke, by the way. I mean, they had like a status in the caste system, the pecking order, all the way up, like where you have prince, princess, before you get to queen and king, and royalty. There's other different lower levels. Now, by no means am I an expert, but just giving you guys an example. In this, you had a pecking order, a caste system, and you have that plays a part. When I read a document many years ago that used to be free online, I can't say if you will still be able to find this document. It was called Lawyers and Judges Secret Oath, by the way. Lawyers and Judges Secret Oath. And it stated in there that lawyers are knights, are esquires for the Queen of England, by the way, because they get issued that license through the Bar Association, which the bar is an acronym for British Accredited Regency. It may have had other variations to bar. If you've heard of those terms like barrister, bar, British Accredited Regency. And oftentimes, after, I assume, after they pass the bar exam, part of the process, they had to go through their county to get issued that P number. And that P number is like the equivalent of like their social security number for their bar license. It's just like if someone gets a concealed carry license, you'll have an ID number that's attached to that concealed carry license. But what these municipalities and states and cities started doing, since they're making money off of people in commerce, they started combining those concealed carry licenses with driver's licenses, by the way, which is very interesting. If some years ago, they combined the driver's license with the social security number, where they linked up the name. And there's a whole education and study behind that, and why that's actually being done. Because behind the scenes, I've done previous videos talking about the in lingus in the court system, when I was discussing capitis diminutio maxima, that refers to the all caps, the decedent estate, by the way. In the court system, that is referred to as the in lingus, by the way. You can look up in lingus, it's Latin term for artificial person, artificial being, by the way. So this is why the definitions are very, very, very important. Because what happens, you go in and enter in the courts, remember, they're not going to play fair. That's why I'm very similar when I did a previous video and I compared what was going on with this election stuff to what stuff I saw in the so-called sovereign citizen movement, or people that were blatantly having their rights violated and just being railroaded and trampled on. It's not a coincidence, because I compare it to sports. When you know what it's like when you step in another team's home territory. Let's say you're the visiting team, by the way, and you know how it's harder, even if you are highly skilled, you're a good team, and you have, let's say, the best player, one of the best players in your league, respectively, but you go in and you have to, you're a visiting team, and you have to go into somebody else's home court or home stadium. There's a saying, you have home court advantage. Well, that's the equivalent of what they have in the court system. This is, judges, lawyers, they've been trained to speak a certain way. They've been trained to speak fluently, and I have to learn, I have to brush up myself. And this is the advantage they have. And what I argue is that many of us should have been learning the law when we were in, I would say, elementary school. I wouldn't even go as far back to say it should have been mandatory because some people knew about civics class. I didn't even understand that civics at the time dealt with the law in high school. Well, I took American government, which dealt with law explaining the three body politics of government between the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. I remember learning about that, but I didn't specifically know what I didn't really understand when I used to see the definition of civics and what that dealt with, because many of these different disciplines and careers overlap one another, by the way. And that's how I've been able to connect the dots. So going piggyback into that book I mentioned called Business and the Law Manual, this is how I was able to discover things that were related to the so-called sovereign movement was being disguised through that book called Business and Law. For example, there was a chapter that I mentioned that dealt with the UCC finances statements, and even the updated versions of that book that I was able to find when I scrolled through. Many of these books are very large too, by the way. I was able to find PDF files just doing my own research, and this is what I was researching very in depth not that long ago, going before the holiday. And I was thinking about doing a series on this for those interested in redemption education or trying to gain a better understanding and prove that they're hiding this information intentionally. And this is why I brought up the legal system, by the way, and what they've done, and why I feel we should have been learning a lot of this stuff when we were in elementary school, prior to even middle school and high school. We should have been familiarized with those terms, the definitions, because it's a lot to cram in. Let's say when you become an adult or you find yourself in a legal situation, a lot of times there's people that say they just want to pay someone to do the work for them, to hire a lawyer. But you have to keep in mind, sometimes when you pay someone based on the severity of the case or the situation, you're asking, it's like you're putting your life or something serious at stake in someone else's hands. That's not a guarantee. Even if you have a lot of money and you hire a really good lawyer to represent you or file the paperwork. And keep in mind, when you hire an attorney, they've you're unknowingly declaring yourself incompetent, by the way. And you hear me when I give my disclaimer, part of when I give my disclaimer, and I use that term competence in there. That's a very important terminology too within the court system. And also how if they don't like what you're saying, and they can try to use a legal maneuver to try to dismiss you as being crazy or conspiracy theorists. They'll use mental insanity. So they say, are you competent? There's different games and tricks that you can read about that judges have played. I've read this many years ago when I first started learning this information in the movement. There used to be a lot of free documents online from witnesses and people who had experience going in the court system and were relaying the information back at the time to the public as far as what was going on and how they were being railroaded and they weren't getting justice. And when you get into the etymology of these words, it really goes deeper in the breakdown, because justice, they I learned many years ago, there's a play on the words. Like library dealt with from one aspect, it was stated many years ago, can be to lie and bury the truth. Justice means just us, and understand means to stand under. Jordan Maxwell was one breaking that down, to stand under. And the courts are also banks. So when they derive this information going back to ancient times and different time periods, where they get the concept of the birth certificate, there was a time period where the captain of the ship had to provide for the port authority what was called a certificate of manifest. This is where you get the concept of the birth certificate. Now, I have to get better. I have a friend who helped uncover, because like I say, he's the equivalent of literally a 5-star historian. He tries to remain humble, but I tell him he has a miraculous skill set. by the way, with knowing the history. And he told me to look up a lot of things that relate to the so-called sovereign citizen movement is derived from the Greek mythology, the ancient god Hermes, and things of that sort, which I'll have to delve into. I'm not really experienced, but I can see how this goes back to ecclesiastical law, and they've derived concepts from Roman times. But I'll have to get better at explaining which time periods. So just understand these are notes that I've taken throughout the years from compiling data, DVDs, documentation, evidence, and whistleblowers and investigative journalists, by the way, who compile this information. That's why I say in our modern day society, the newbies or people learning this information don't have it as hard as we did many years ago when it was through word of mouth. It wasn't like we had the internet back then, but it wasn't like it is now where we had to find through word of mouth. You had to be able to attend private meetings just to get access or to meet other people who knew about this information. It wasn't where you can just go to a certain YouTube channel and watch someone's video, or pull up a DVD, or watch a webinar, or watch a radio show and have someone break it down. This wasn't that easy. That's why there's those that wonder why certain people say, Dorsey, you've been in this a long time. How come you're not free yet? Or you're still broke, or you're still punching that clock. This is part of the reason what I'm explaining, going into details, but yet I've been able to have the skill set and ability to have empowered a lot of people. And keep in mind, you have people who, because a lot of people in human nature are selfish, where once they get theirs, they say, oh, I'm fine, I'm straight. They don't want to come back and help. And then you have some people that feel like, or they act like they're competing against someone else, and they just, they don't want to share the information. Not everyone is like that, but I've experienced and noticed that firsthand, by the way. And it's even one of the reasons why I was even informed by some friends of mine I was giving out too much information. This is what I had a couple people tell me this some years ago. They said, you give out too much information, Dorsey. I said, well, I want, my subscribers and people to have a clear understanding that no, I don't want to hold back. But I had to start holding back some information. And even for people that want to know what I know, you can set up a private consultation. The description to do that, it should be in the description box. In case you're wondering, if you want to know what I know, or the documents and things that I have, supporting documentation to substantiate and validate what I'm sharing with you guys, all as well as the experience that I'm going over. This information at one time was not as easy to come by, but I did help out people, many people. So I've already done that before. By the way, I've done my humanitarian duty, and I actually feel, it's not that I feel entitled, but I'm already at a stage where I feel like I've paid my dues already. I've definitely put in a lot of work. But this is one of the reasons I was asked by someone, say, hey, you've been in this a long time. Why are you not free yet? Another thing I'm going to go into, and I probably have to call this a different series, is I got this idea from another content creator on YouTube. I won't say. I may have to call it the X-Files, maybe if I start a Patreon account, because I touched on some things really heavy in my previous video that went over when I brought up the deep state. And I know there's some people, and I don't mean to do this on purpose, but I like to be thorough with putting everything out, I think, to be fair, because you have people who can get access to certain information that other people can't. And I'll let you all read between the lines that some people are part of the club. Let's say it, just leave it like that. I'm kind of speaking in code. Some people who are part of the club have the ability to get information and access that information easier than people who have slaved, who worked hard, who've been in this a long time. And it's just, sad to me that, I won't say the name, but this event that I attended some years ago, it appeared to be, and I have direct confirmation that the individual at the top played favoritism big time. There was individuals that he knew that worked hard, slaved to get to those events. were very loyal. Then they would turn around and put certain people on a pedestal and just tell the other group, hey, you gotta wait, put you on the back burner. You think anybody, the average person, if they're not part of the inner circle of the club, are they gonna be happy about that? Hell no, they're gonna be pissed. You put that person in that other person's shoes, you know, this is things I had to go through personally and witness. So it shows you that, it's a major fight, that freedom is not free. And this was stated years ago. You don't want to be free and dumb when you break the word freedom down, getting back into the etymology when I went over library, to lie and bury the truth. I forgot about attorney is you slow the term down, break it down, get into the suffixes and prefixes. Attorney, a turn on you, attorney, a turn on you, attorney. And that document I was referring to earlier, lawyers and judges' secret oath, they're esquires for the queen, similar to the knight on the chessboard. If you know how to use the knights, they can play a very vital part in protecting your king and queen on the chessboard when you know how to use them. And they make a certain maneuver, the L position. So, and I went over how lawyers, so when they get that P license, they're issued through the county, just similar to how people had to go through the county to get their concealed carry permit. And lawyers, after they pass the bar and everything, and they go through the county and they're issued a P number, which is like an ID number, just like one would have for a concealed carry license. They have a specific ID number. That P number, I discovered, I was informed by a private source, gives them like another form of a dual form of citizenship, gives them an advantage over a regular U.S. citizen in society. And then when you hire a lawyer, you're declaring yourself incompetent. So when they represent you, you slow to get into the etymology of the word represent. Get into the prefixes and suffixes. Represent, represent you. Represent to represent. You see? You get into the prefixes and suffixes of the word. Represent. So there's a play on the words, on the terminology. And sometimes these terms, once again, have a dual meaning. In the court system, it'll mean something totally different than what you were taught in the Webster's dictionary versus the Black's Law Legal Dictionary or the Bouvier's dictionary versus these law legal dictionaries. So that's how they've hidden this information in one aspect. Another aspect, they've crippled us in commerce by hiding these things that we need to be able to have at our disposal when one becomes an adult and starts entering into contracts and needs to defend their rights and their intellectual property, which is a chapter in the business and law manual that deals with DBAs, copyrights, trademarks, trade names. Notice that's similar to certain paperwork and things that people filed in the so-called sovereign citizen movement. See, this is in the manual business and law. So I went over the chapter secure transactions that deals with UCC financing statements. I just brought up intellectual property, which deals with DBAs, doing business as, and that's what you're doing. You're doing business as the legal person. In the court system, that's the in lingus. Look up the definition of the term in lingus. That's the artificial artifice that deals with artificial being. Look up capitis diminutio maxima. See if you can find what I found some years ago to give you guys homework to show that I do my research. And you see, if one person that's doing this by themselves, especially if you don't have a support network, it's going to take you longer to crack the code or to find things out. Because with one thing the elites have also done, they were taught by their parents and sent to private schools by invitation only, but they also have a private network where they're sharing the advanced information and they're hiding the real way how to operate from the rest of the general public. And this is what I was trying to explain to a loved one. If people put their eyeglasses on, you have someone right up under you who, if I had the money, a friend of mine said he was able to see this years later until he got to know me better. He always thought he was trying to fight against me. And this was no knock. He said something yesterday that I wasn't going to let him live something down. I told him, hey, I understand. I said, you just simply didn't know at the time. So don't fault yourself. You live and you learn. This is part of life. Just like I commend him at things he's more advanced at because I'm humble. I'm not trying to compete, but I'm just using this as an example and breaking things down that as he's gotten to know me better, he sees that I would be the opposite of George Soros. You know, I'm not going to forget if I have a if I meet a member of the private sector or someone at the elite that's going to help me get out of this 9-to-5 job, that say, hey, Dorsey, I see you suffering and you've been doing these videos for a long time. You know, I'm gonna look out for you financially. I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna give you the keys so you can get out of that. Not just through uh the other stuff, but financially. Show me how to access my so-called secret account with no reversals. Because I know it is real. And I know they're intentionally making this difficult, which doesn't have to be. And when they do that, they create enemies. That's a whole nother discussion, by the way. But they're saying you don't have a signature card on file. So why didn't the individual help us assist us in doing a signature card where we could have at least discharged debt by having access to the account? We didn't even have to have access to the black card. Forget the black card. But we know there's a way to do ACH transactions without getting no reversals. But why didn't you give us the correct way how to access the accounts without having any reversals if you were a true fucking humanitarian? That's why I saw you were full of shit from the very beginning. And this person knows who they are. You know, that's how I know they're a damn lie. But they preach to all these followers and people that, you know, that this other person is the bad guy, or they try to point the finger. No, your first humanitarian project should have been helping the people out from the very beginning that you promised you were going to walk through. If you say you want people to be good stewards, you definitely did not demonstrate that. Where I was taught, your word is supposed to be your bond. Because this is not a coincidence that these words are put together with trust. When you set up a trust and your word is supposed to be your bond and people are supposed to trust you. That's why you have trust law. And the real most powerful trust goes back to common law, which is God's law. So when you violate those laws, you're not exemplifying the qualities of a Christian or humanitarian. You're operating from the lower self, from Satan, from Lucifer. You're Luciferian, by the way. And I'll just leave it at that. You know, those out there can interpret, make that out to be. But that's how you can tell who really is real. But I would be the type of person, I wouldn't forget you. I'm a responsible person. When it comes to paying my bills, I live on my own. By the way, you know, it's just sad that we have these billionaires out here who fund these anarchist groups who are laundering money and doing these corrupt activities, but have not faced no jail time, and claim to be humanitarians and looked up to as though they're adorable people who have our best interests at heart when they don't. And they have nefarious intentions, many of them. If they are, when they do something good, they have an ulterior motive if it appears as though it's good. But they hired a lot of the stuff they've done, and you only have a few out there that maybe you can count on a finger that may be genuine. Just something to think about, by the way. But going back to this information dealing with the redemption, freedom is not free. So there is definitely a play on the words. In the legal system, I made a note, make a note of the term legalese. Look up the definition of that word. Make sure you save it so you're familiar with it. But if you look up the definition, it states it's been used to replace plain talk, used to replace plain English. Why would they need to replace plain English? If we live in a fair and equal society and they say they want you to receive justice, why do you even have to hire a lawyer in the first place when you go in a court system and they're acting as a third party? Now I understand in this complex society that we live in, people, you know, some people up there in age or people say, well, I would prefer to have the money to have somebody else do the homework and research. But keep in mind the risk involved. You're putting your life in someone else's hands when you don't learn the law or learn how to defend yourself. But we've been forced to operate in a system that is unfair, that is biased legally. that plays favoritism. And that's what goes on in the court system. And I gave the example earlier, like if you play sports and you're playing and you're a visiting team and the person has home court advantage, to say when the fans prior to COVID were still there and they had their crowd behind them and they would boo you when your team would shoot free throws, or or the pitcher was up and was you're in the ninth inning, and say that the home team, the game might be tied. They don't want it to go into sudden death, or they might be down one run. So the crowd starts yelling to push their energy towards the hitter, that they'll hit a home run. Or if you might be a football team, or it could be a tennis match, and you don't have you're the visitor, and you have the crowd heckling you and booing you. That's what the court system is like when you're a so-called sovereign citizen. And especially imagine you were never taught the proper information, how to go on a court and defend yourself, or that they don't have to recognize straw man, like was similar to these judges throwing out these election lawsuits for voter fraud. They're using plausible deniability, which is a term I read many years ago. You guys can look up the definition of plausible deniability. Look and see what that means. How they're going against their dereliction of duty. It's a form of misconduct. I already saw this going on within the so-called sovereign citizen. I call it redemption education. I saw this happen many years ago. So this is not nothing new under the sun. People's rights being violated, being trampled on, being railroaded. Sad. And it most egregiously, more egregiously, takes place worse than interactions with police officers. But I learned the basics of it when a police officer, when I was pulled over many years ago, when I got my first speeding ticket, and I felt it was other people speeding at the time, but I was wondering why the officer kept saying you were doing 72 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. And you know how you're nervous at the time and you're scared. And I was young, using someone else's car coming from work, by the way. And it was a trap. It's in Allen Park, Michigan. It's known for a speed trap, a certain section of Southfield Freeway. And they can scan, they can have one officer, one guy told me, scan you from the bridge and then have another officer pull you over or whatever. They're doing some type of like entrapment, by the way. But you don't know, and you're just thinking you're an honest citizen, you're a registered voter, you've been taught to be good in the system and think just by being good you're going to be rewarded. But sometimes you're treated unfairly. And it was stated by the individual when I gave them the money and they showed up there that there was a lot of people saying that they felt they were being unfairly targeted. But imagine it's much worse within the court system. And you can read this and even see it nowadays. They have videos and stuff, but my friend was able to clearly see that the people that they call the SCs or whatever, that he said that appears that they were tying up the court system. He said it appeared to him that they were less informed. They simply didn't have the correct information with how to operate. And I said, yes, you are absolutely correct. But is it fair for the rest of the people that study this information and the movement or study redemption education to be labeled as that in a derogatory way? To say, oh, that stuff is not real, that stuff doesn't work. When I'm here to tell you there is a pathway that does work if you are proficient. I have saw some people who are advanced, by the way, who know how to file the correct paperwork. Not saying that some of them haven't been railroaded or had their testimonies or stories to tell. But this information is very real, but definitely equipped with the right knowledge, the right information, the right paperwork filed, one can exit the matrix. It is possible, by the way. So I'm going to get to the chat section real quick. I'm going to acknowledge you guys, the few who have joined in. By the way, I appreciate you. Coconut Tea says, thanks and Happy New Year to you. Appreciate you joining. Coconut Tea says, I haven't kept up with everything because I got so discouraged. But what's going on with this investment, by the way? Okay, if you're referring to the reset, I was informed not too long ago, certain individuals don't like to or don't refer to it as an investment. They refer to it as an exchange. However, I understand different ones' interpretation is different. But I think they say that for jurisdictional reasons. I just say keep the faith, hang in there. I think where everything's on track. By the way, it's nothing to be discouraged about. That each day that goes by, we get closer and closer. Coconut T says, thanks for all your research. I see Money Boy in the building. Money Boy in the building, family. What's up, family? Appreciate you for joining. Mary Saunders says, wow. Okay. Hermit Bergen says, man has wicked ways. It's what happens when man distances himself from God. God's way is the only way. God's word is forever. Man needs a lot of words. God nip it in the bud. Great info, respect. Okay. Appreciate you. Yes, I overstand. Torah was taken out and given to the liar when it comes to fair play. Okay, interesting. Hermit Uber Gavin says, man, got to get back to work. God bless. Okay, no problem. I understand. Appreciate you all rocking with me. Those that are still up late that are joining like this podcast in a way that I have. This was kind of freestyle open forum discussion that we're having just to see how many people we get in. And I guess I did have a topic. It kind of got more into as I was discussing dealing with the all caps and the redemption education. By the way, so with that said, I'm going to get ready to shut things down. By the way, but I just wanted to join you guys, see who's still up, let you all know I'm still here. If you want to subscribe to me, if you haven't, go ahead, hit the notification bell in the lower right hand corner of the under the YouTube video. That way you should receive new updates. I am on other platforms, by the way. I've gone over this in the past. The reason why we should work on getting on other platforms, web hosting platforms out there that are growing exponentially, by the way, because what YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter and others are doing with the censorship, very egregious, form of bullying, picking and choosing. So that's why I have backups out there. And there's, like I say, to reiterate, there's platforms that are growing. I'm also on Parler. So you can find me at Dorsey's Resource if you have a Parler account. By the way, come join me over there sometime. You never know when I log in. I'm also on Minds.com. Minds.com. I just set up a Rumble account. However, I don't have any content over there yet. So I'm still working on that. But remember, that will be like a backup. And then I'm considering getting on D Live. It's another platform where I will be able to do live feeds, live discussions like this, unfiltered, uncensored. By the way, even though despite they may not have monetization, some of these other platforms use cryptocurrencies and allow different ways to make money that way. But if you want to support the channel, by the way, let's say you like the work that I'm doing, you like the information I'm putting out. By the way, you can always feel free to donate at Dorsey's Resource. The link should be when you go to my YouTube channel in the upper right hand corner. By the way, I have a PayPal and you can donate through Cash App. Also should be in the description box. If you want to set up a private consultation, just shoot me an email. Let me know. I will get with you when I get a chance. Handle inquiries on a first come, first served basis. By the way, so if you're interested in that, say, hey, Dorsey, I want to know what you know. I want to know what webinars, or if you could send me those documents or anything to pick my brain about, uh, my fees and everything. It's in the description box. So with that said, I appreciate you all for rocking with me. I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource, doing business as that in Lingus. Until next time, uh, the marathon will continue. Real legends never die. Stay woke. Peace.